Hello and welcome back. We are continuing on with our Blood Ravens project from last time. I believe this is going to be the final part, 2 of 2, if you will. And of course, we're going to be doing our small brush that we were using for the majority of our last video. And we're going to be starting with some armor trim because it's the most difficult, so we want to get out of the way first. And we're going to be using our Abaddon Black, which again we use to base coat much of the model. Everything but the shoulders, basically. And we have this nice and thin on our palette. We are going to very carefully, I'm actually not sure where I want to start with this, because if I mess up, it's just going to be very annoying. But we are going to use the side of our brush. If we can actually get a little bit more on our palette, that might be nice. I made it a little too thin, unfortunately. It's drying up like the moment I'm touching our model with it. But we are going to be just using the side of our brush almost to kind of apply this very, very carefully. We don't want to spill any on the Rakarth flesh portion of our pauldron because that's going to be very annoying to fix. So nice and slow, take it easy. We might have to go back over this a time or two just to get full, proper coverage. But slow and steady wins the race. And we're at kind of an impasse here. I can't use the side of my brush on the inside of this. So I just want to very carefully, and I think I already messed up a little bit. That's fine. We'll roll with the punches. And we just want to continue our way up as much as we can, making as little mistakes as we feasibly can. And we're coming at some really weird angles today. Starting off nice and early with that, because we have a bolter in the way, we have a bolt pistol in the way, we have a shoulder strap thing. There's just a ton of stuff in the way of this stupid shoulder pad here. But on the plus side, the shoulder pad on the other side has basically nothing. So it'll be much easier to do. And getting right back to it here after getting a little bit more paint on our brush. We're going to continue on, just moseying our way down. And I'm kind of losing sight of where we're going here, which isn't great. And of course I made a huge mistake and got a big old wet spot on the pauldron. Not great. But we're going to fix it, and we'll just kind of power through it. And I've actually kind of missed I don't even know if you can see it, this little inside corner here. That bolter pistol was blocking it pretty well. But the good news is, since you can barely see it, it means that you won't really be able to see it when you're just looking at the model itself. So we won't focus too much on it there. And then we're going to jump over to the other side, and we're going to do the exact same thing, using the kind of side of our brush just to very gently, as much as we can, avoid make a mess. And we do have that little hilt of the sword in the way. I'm going to kind of maneuver around it if I can, but it shouldn't be too bad. Now, I didn't talk about any of the lore of Blood Ravens last time, mainly because I don't really know their lore. They are a successor chapter. They have an unknown founding, and the chapter that they're from is unknown as well, which is kind of cool. I think the most popular theory is that they are a Thousand Sons successor, and they are loyalist, so that's pretty neat if that is the case. I do kind of like that GW doesn't really let some of their secrets out when it comes to that sort of thing. They just leave it as an open mystery, which is great. I really love that style of storytelling. The only problem with that is sometimes it just doesn't make sense when they do things like that. And I can't think of any specific examples right now, but I'm sure if I really thought about it, I could. But it's the same thing like Miyazaki does with Dark Souls, right? If you're into that series, you'll know that a lot of the lore, at least in the first game especially, is just open to interpretation. And man, I really enjoy that style of storytelling. It's really fun to me. Being able to kind of make up your own little headcanons is great. And that kind of went away with some of the more recent games they've done. Um, the lore is still hidden, but pretty much everything gets explained now. I don't like that. I like being able to kind of interpret things for myself. But enough jabbering about lore. We are going to keep continuing on. We're now painting the Aquila, Akia. Still don't know how to pronounce it. Someone please tell me in the comments. It's one of those words like you read and you think, yeah, that makes sense. That's a word. But then you go to actually say it and you're like, wait a minute. That doesn't make sense. Like Hermione, right? In Harry Potter. I know like a lot of people didn't know how to like say her name properly. I feel like every English teacher I had in school would always tell the story of like, yeah, no, Hermione. I called her like Hermione or something, and it was just always the same story. Every teacher I had, I swear. I think it's like a prerequisite to being an English teacher. You have to be able to say that you didn't know her name properly until the movies came out. But we are continuing on. We're making a little bit more of a mess here, but that's fine. It's more fixable with the chest because going from a dark color to another dark color is pretty easy. But on the pauldrons, it's a little bit more tricky because we're going from a dark color to a light color. And just gently press down. We'll go right back over on this wing now that it's dry. And do the best we can to kind of avoid spilling. I really like the black wings and skull. I think it's a really cool thing. Usually I do like gold if I'm doing ultramarines, or I'll do like a more brass if I'm doing dark angels. But man, blood angels and blood ravens kind of get the style points for having the black wings. And now that that's more or less finished up, we can move on to our next little spot, which is going to be in between all of these armor plates. I don't know what this technically is. Like, it's kind of like an undersuit. It's kind of like chainmail underneath like a plate mail armor, right? So we're going to get our paint nice and thinned. This is going to help it kind of file right into the recesses. And we just want to get all of those little, it's kind of like corrugated almost. That's kind of the best way I can describe it. It's how it looks. It looks like corrugated metal, or like a plastic like hose almost. That's like folded up, like scrunched up. I don't know. It's a really weird kind of texture. But regardless, we will paint it all black, as the God Emperor intended, of course. And looking around on the front, there's really not anywhere that's a thing, except for underneath this one shoulder pad, if I can get in here. Yeah, that kind of works out because it looks a little bit messy under there anyway. I don't know if you can really see it just with the lighting, but it was looking a little bit rough under there. I didn't kind of properly paint that, unfortunately. And you kind of have spots like that where your brush just really does not like to reach into certain places. So we're going to do the exact same thing on this other side. Just get our brush nice up there. And let's kind of make it a more kind of shaded area. And with that difficult stuff being out of the way, we're going to move on to the easier bits, and then we're going to switch to different colors entirely. So with a little bit more Abaddon Black, I think I showcased it. If I didn't, there you go, Abaddon Black. I like to just kind of show what we're using every time. We are going to be going to our bolt weapons, nice and easy. We do want to be a little bit careful around this pauldron here. I don't want to spill any on it. And just generally make it all one kind of nice shade of black. Already this brush is starting to get a bit of a bend in it. It's because I don't properly treat my brushes with respect because they're so cheap. I just kind of use and abuse them. which if you're using nicer brushes, try not to do that. You really don't want to ruin your stuff if it's expensive, but I get these for really cheap. You can get them on Amazon for like dirt cheap. You can go to Walmart and get them. They're like $1 for like a 5-pack. they're super cheap, and there's so many different brands. Like you're really never gonna hurt to find a cheap brush. But with that being said, I don't actually have any recommendations. Good lord, I cannot talk today. For nice brushes, because I don't use them. And there's kind of a reason for that. Number one is because I just know I would be super upset if my brushes weren't properly taken care of, if they were expensive, and I feel like that's a habit I'd kind of fall into. And number two, I do like to kind of showcase that you can paint some pretty good stuff without like the absolute best equipment. You don't need the fancy, $60 brush. Like, you just need the cheap Amazon stuff. That'll do you just fine. And that kind of helps, make this a little bit more accessible for people who are just getting into the hobby or who are just starting out. You don't need the best equipment ever. You don't even need the best paint ever. If you don't want to use, GW brand paint, you can use Vallejo. Army Painter has some pretty good stuff out. Their speed paints, I hear a lot of good things about. Otherwise, I don't really know Army Painter's quality. I think their Fanatic paints as well are pretty good. So there you go. Don't worry about busting out like the absolute top dollar for your models if you're first getting into the hobby. Now, if you decide you like it and you want to stick with it, absolutely go hog wild. The plastic itself is very expensive. You might as well spend a few extra bucks on your supplies. But overall, don't stress about it too much. And with that being said, we're going to switch our colors. We're going to be focusing on the sword, I think, first. And then we're going to clean up kind of the rest of the silver on the bolters there. And of course, the old classic lead belcher. I was kind of looking, I did purchase some new paints. I have them coming in the mail. I was kind of looking at other silvers. And honestly, I just don't feel like I'd be happy with any other silver. I've just been using lead belcher for so long. I'm just so used to it. So maybe one day in the future will change, but for now we're going to keep on trucking. And I know this is a power sword, but honestly, I just kind of like the look of like a standard long sword, so we're not going to do any crazy effects. Maybe at some point in the future we'll make a whole video where we deck this thing out. But for now we're going to keep it plain and simple, all reliable, nice and easy. And make sure you get the back as well. It's an easy part to miss, and we got some weird angles, but we'll try our best to get it. And don't worry about it too much if it's like you can't reach all of it. This is kind of hidden by shadows, so you can just leave it black if you want and just use that excuse. But we'll do our best to get all of it here and get a little bit more paint on our palette rather. If this is your first video with me for some reason, you're going to find out very quickly. I'm notorious for not putting nearly enough paint on my palette at any given time. I just never do, and it's sort of like I don't want to waste paint, even though it's kind of a minuscule amount of waste in the end. But old habits die hard, so I'm going to keep doing it. And one more nice little coat over the front of this thing, and we're going to switch to our bolters. Now, I kind of like to do my bolters a very simple way. I like to do the barrel here, and the little nubbin on top of that. And of course you want to make sure you get the front of your barrel. I don't ever drill my barrels. Maybe at some point in the future I will, but just for now I like to keep things simple. I don't want to mess them up any more than I already do when I'm painting them. So I'm not going to get into that territory just yet. And you want to get the inside of your barrels as well. It's very easy to miss, but it'll stand out horribly once you're finished. And we also want to get the barrel of our bolt pistol. So just a little nub, it's much easier to do. And you can get the little thing underneath it. And then with the bolt rifles, I just kind of like to do the magazines and then the scopes as well. You can go a little bit fancier with it if you want. You can make it more or less silver. I mean, you can do whatever color you want, obviously. You know, it's your model, so you paint them however. But I like to keep things pretty simplistic. And we'll also do the scope. And our brush got a little bit frazzled there, so I'm going to clean it off. And good as new. Get a little bit more silver on our palette. And we will finish this thing off. Perfect. And I'm just kind of deciding last second here. I think that's what we'll leave it with. Then the bolt pistol itself, I kind of like to change up a little bit. I like to do the entire underside of it, just because so like the top is very clearly separated from the bottom, and it kind of gives you a good like halfway point throughout it to just kind of split it up and paint them two different colors. So I think it's kind of fun to do it this way. And the inside's a little bit harder, but we'll try our best there. And make sure you get the bottom of it as well. Very easy to miss. And the trigger guard too. And while we're at it, we also want to get that handle. It might be a little bit awkward. This brush is kind of big for this, but we'll try. If we can. I'm just trying to figure out what angle to come at it from. I think we'll go to it like this. It's very nice and easy. Get the bottom of it. And if you can, we'll even turn our brush a little bit. I want to get the side as well. There we go. Nice and simple. And while I'm actually here, I don't want to forget, I also want to get these exhausts just because I like them being silver. You did them black as well. I think black would be a good color for this, but I just use the classics. Pretty much all my Space Marines end up looking like this, so we'll keep with tradition. And make sure you do the underside. And then one last spot I want to do before we switch to another color is I like to get the inside of the upper exhaust. I think that's what they are. I honestly don't know. I don't know why there's two sets of exhausts, but it's fine. I'm not going to question it. GW knows more than I do, so we'll let James Workshop do what he deems it right to do. And just very quickly go right back over that. I almost forgot, I do want to do these kind of little like face hose things. I don't even know what they technically are, but I feel like they should be silver. And I haven't done that in the past few videos, and I feel kind of bad about it. And we will get the other side very quickly if we can. Nothing too crazy. I don't want to mess things up really, but a little bit more on our brush. And brush is really starting to get a curve in it now, which sucks, but it's fine. It's the way all things go, unfortunately. And now, I think we're getting on to our very last few little paints. We have two more here, and one of these is kind of optional. You really don't need it. You can just do black, but I like the gun strap to be... Oh, not stoned. Oh, whoa. There we go. Dryad bark. I almost horribly ruined that. It's the same color, technically, but Sterling's a technical paint, so it's a little bit thicker, and that would have looked super weird with that being finally done. But I do want to get this little like leather gun strap. I do like that being a nice brown color, and you can see maybe there's a little bit of white in there just past the scope. I want to get that as well. And obviously there's the underside, and just kind of do the best you can with it. There's a ton of stuff in the way, but I'll very quickly just do a nice coat on that. There we are. Oh, there's actually a little bit in the front too. Whoops. Perfect. And once that dries, it'll be nice and dark, so it'll kind of look like it's black anyway. If you don't have dryad bark, that's why black is a perfectly acceptable replacement. And I think with our last little bits, we're going to do a Balthazar gold. This is going to be for the handle of our sword. And then we're going to do the eyes. And that's probably going to finish us up here. Ooh, let me thin that down a little bit. Nothing too crazy here. Just everything we can kind of reach. I don't want to paint his hand too much if I can avoid it. And some things are unavoidable, apparently. It's fine. Everything's fine. I'll fix it in post, right? And if you didn't catch the last video, you might be wondering why this guy has a Dark Angel sword. Well, the meme goes, this isn't like official lore or anything, but with the Dawn of War 2 games, there was a bunch of like relics that you just happened to be able to get in the campaign, and it was entirely because it was just a video game mechanic thing, right? Like there was no lore behind it. But you had like chapter specific items. Like I think the Blood Angels had some stuff. The Ultramarines had some stuff that you could use. And you know, it became a meme that Blood Angels or Blood Ravens rather are thieves. And honestly, I like the meme, so I'm gonna keep it going, and we're gonna stick with it, and that's why this guy has a Dark Angel sword. So there you go. And last but not least, our final color, and this is gonna be for all the money here to end our video off. And we're actually gonna switch to a little bit of a smaller brush. We're gonna be switching to Caliban Green. It's the same one I've used for like the past 3 videos now. And with this somewhat thinned down, we're going to be very careful, and we're going to apply this very gently to our eyes. And the bolter's kind of in the way there as I scratch my face, but oh, and I'm making an absolute mess of it. It's fine. Everything's fine. Oh, it's brutal, but I will fix it in the future. That's rough. I gotta fix that now. That looks horrible. The eyes are filled in, but unfortunately the spillage is a little bit real, so I'll take a second to fix that. And while I do this, I do want to shout out, I have a Patreon. If you guys enjoy my videos and you want to see more, feel free to check that out. You know, any money that goes towards that goes right back into making these. So, you know, it's a good way to continue what I'm doing. Otherwise, feel free to like and subscribe. All of it helps me out very, very much. And also, especially comments. You know, I do like feedback from you guys, whether you enjoy these videos, whether you want to see something different, whether there's any specific chapters you want me to paint, anything like that. It really helps me out to kind of get that feedback from you guys. So feel free to leave it, even if it's like good or bad feedback. You know, I really don't mind either way. All of the criticism is good criticism, right? And with that being cleaned up, that is going to do it. Let me touch that up just a little bit more. There we go. That'll do it. That is our Blood Raven finished. If you guys enjoyed this, feel free to let me know. As always, thank you guys very much for watching, and hopefully I will see you in the next video.